Welcome to FSHD Straight Talk, the podcast where we dive deep into living with FSHD. I'm your host, Tim Hollenback, and I'm on the journey with you. Having FSHD, I understand the challenges it brings to patients and their families. We're in this together, and this podcast is a space where we swap stories, share advice, and talk to experts to get the latest news. There's plenty to say about living with FSH muscular dystrophy, so let's get straight to it. Welcome all to another episode of FSHD Straight Talk. This show is brought to you by the FSHD Society. Here in this podcast, we talk with the patients, the people, the family members, the community of FSHD, the science, all that stuff. Yeah, that might kind of make a pass through our episodes from time to time. There's another podcast for that. I kind of gear you that direction if you want to talk that stuff. We try to be mostly about positive and not fake Pollyanna positive, real life. It's tough dealing with this disease. I hope this show can help you cope, connect, and so forth with it. Today, one of those connections is going to be made with Michael King. He is a chapter director from North Carolina, lives in the Charlotte area. We're going to talk to him today. Some great takeaways coming up in that episode. You can find all past episodes where you find your podcast, either Google or Spotify like myself. Rate, review, follow, do those important things. Let's build this community even more. For all the walk and rolls you may be going to, talk about the podcast if you can, let them know where to find it. Another great way to connect with the community, not just in your neck of the woods, but heck, internationally. Really, I've talked to people from Australia even. It's been awesome. You want to get a hold of me, you want to be maybe a guest on the show, or give me some topic ideas. I'd love to hear from you. FSHD Radio at FSHDsociety.org. I used to do a podcast a long time ago. Man, I'm going to say what it is. You're probably going to try to find it. Rec Room Show. And it was a lot of crazy guests and things like that. Some people even describe it as like, it was like the Seinfeld of podcasts. It was about everything and about nothing at the same time. And I always had people sometimes just wanted my opinion. You know, they would say, what do you think about this? And I would share my thoughts on it and have that dialogue a little bit. Love, if you want my opinion on stuff, hey, I guess that might be fun too. So that email again, FSHDradio at FSHDsociety.org. Also find great connections within the community. Go to FSHDsociety.org. Take a look at the calendar page on there. So many things, so many walk and rolls have been going on. We're going to talk about that today with Michael King, about the walk and roll that's happening for him. There's walk and rolls that are going on. They're going on before this episode was recorded in the beginning of September, and it's going all the way to the beginning of October to like the 12th. There's still some in October. So take a look at that schedule too. Add that maybe to your list or things to do, especially those that maybe have not been a part of, you know, anything community yet. It's kind of a nice, safe thing to do. You don't necessarily have to do a walk team or even donate money, perhaps, you know, not in that situation. Okay. But maybe just attend and just try to connect with the community. When I talked to Michael King today, he's going to talk about some amazing things that he's been a part of in his life, including this F3 group that he's about, which is really cool. We'll talk about what those 3 F's are. We're going to talk about some common themes in there. Talk a lot about community, connection, fellowship, finding the people that you can connect with. Connection is just huge theme within this episode. I've found a lot of true positive people. And like I mentioned, not Pollyanna positive, fake. It's not a false positive. It is a true positive nature. And Michael talks about sometimes of course, we all get the dark days. He does too, or even longer than days, sometimes weeks. But how do you get out of that? Has some advice for that a little bit. Some of the things he does. How does he stay even fit? He was an athlete, but he still does things. So that's where he kind of introduces what F3 is about. So that might be something that you might think is interesting, even in your area, because it turns out that group is national. I was fascinated by that part of our conversation. He talks about how quickly he jumped in from diagnosis just in January to doing 2 fundraising events, including one of those was a walk and roll event. How he went to the Connect conference in Denver and how that moved him and how that was rewarding for him. He talks openly with, you know, connecting with someone with FSHD for the first time, what that was like, telling his family of his diagnosis. The journey to find the diagnosis was interesting and has very common and shared by so many of us. And of course, one of my favorite parts is how he talks so highly of his wife. It's awesome. You can see the love coming through him for her just through the podcast. There's so much to share. I hope you enjoy it. Listen for those things and listen for when he talks about how your life is rewritten. That kind of stands out to me in this episode. So I hope you enjoy it. Here's my conversation with Michael King. Hi, everyone. I've got some exciting news for you from the FSHD community. If you've ever felt the unpredictability of FSHD or wish there was more accurate research and information out there, and I know you have, then listen up. I'm thrilled to tell you about Better Life FSHD, a groundbreaking new research platform from the FSHD Society that's changing the game for those of us living with FSHD. Better Life is your one-stop hub for tracking symptoms, accessing personalized resources like articles and videos relevant to you. And the best part, as you take surveys and track your symptoms, you provide FSHD researchers with better data to understand this complex, understudied disease. And a better understanding can lead to faster treatments, something every one of us can get behind. So head over to betterlifefshd.org and join the study. It only takes a minute to get signed up. Together, we can change the future for everyone affected by FSHD. I've done this. It's a simple process. I challenge you to do the same. Again, that's betterlifefshd.org. Now let's get back to the show. As promised, today's guest is Michael King. He is from North Carolina, I believe, but we're going to get into that because he's been recently diagnosed with FSHD. We're going to get into that as well. But first, let's invite him in. Welcome, Michael. Thanks for being here with us today.
Hi, Tim. Thanks for having me on the show.
Absolutely. Glad that you're here. Before we hit record, you said you've listened to a lot of episodes, which I'm very flattered. That's awesome that you've kind of jumped on into that podcast realm that we're given here on FSHD Straight Talk. So let's kind of start with, the beginnings like I do with a lot of guests. I'm sure where are you from and what's your FSHD story?
Sure. Yeah. So I am from Charlotte, North Carolina. And my story kind of started when I moved here a few years back. I had been at a trade show and was walking, a lot of walking, those trade shows, big halls. And I started limping for no apparent reason whatsoever. I work out and have been an athlete for my whole life. So it's like, I should have hurt something for me to be limping like this. So get back to the hotel room and I'm looking at my leg, like, what's going on? And then I noticed one of my calves is much smaller than the other all of a sudden. And I hadn't noticed that change. And then I realized I couldn't actually lift my heel off the ground. So I lost all the strength in that one calf. And so as soon as I got back from the show, I called up my orthopedic, went in to see them, and they started a series of tests, x-rays, MRIs, and they finally got to an EMG study to test nerve conductivity and came back with a diagnosis that, well, first they're like, I've never seen anything like this before in my life. So this is strange how it's happening. And they said, you have nerve damage in your calf. We don't know how it happened or when it occurred. Obviously it occurred recently if you're just noticing this.
Right.
The muscle had atrophy. So they gave me a year and a half and said, hey, either it's going to start healing itself or it's going to be permanent. So I went back about a year and a half, had another EMG study. And then essentially the next day I got a phone call, a voicemail. This doctor was like, yep, it turns out it's permanent. It's nerve damage. Nothing we can do. So good luck. And that was the voicemail. So that's where I was left.
That's nice. That's great. So do you still see that doctor?
I do not.
Okay, I didn't think so. Oh, that's good.
But again, as we all know, doctors none of them seem to really know about this unless they've had exposure to it. So I went on with my life, trying to live with what I thought was nerve damage in my calf and continued to do stuff. And then I noticed it just wasn't getting better. And not only was I not getting, I knew it wouldn't get better, the calf itself, but my endurance, my physical abilities were starting to continue to deteriorate. And I knew it wasn't just that calf. So became concerned again, saw a couple more doctors and said, hey, this is happening. I think some of my muscles aren't the same size and I'm really fatiguing. And I used to be an athlete, so I really know my body and this doesn't seem right. I got brushed off a few more times. I kind of just said, okay, this is the way it's going to be. And it was about the 5 years after I originally started having the problem, I was I was really noticing the change, and I was determined to find somebody. So I researched, found a neurologist nearby. He spent a great deal of time with me, but he couldn't figure it out. And he says, when I can't figure it out, I send you to this doctor in Charlotte. So boom,
Okay.
the next week I went to that doctor in Charlotte. She asked me all these sorts of weird questions. I had no idea why she was asking, like, could I sip through a straw? Can I whistle? Can I, all the things that the doctors were to ask, but she immediately did some genetic testing and some other blood tests.
Okay.
The genetic test came back as, positive for FSHD1. And, there I finally had the diagnosis, which was relieving in the sense that, okay, it wasn't crazy. What I was noticing was in fact going wrong, but
Mhm.
that happiness, I guess you'd call it, or knowing that at least I had a diagnosis, and, then immediately it's like, oh, wait a minute, I have this disease now, and I don't know what it means for my future. And
Yeah.
the uncertainty that's ahead was, of course, the other side of that coin. But at least I had that diagnosis, and the clinic that I went to, and the doctor and the staff, they were fantastic and really walked me through it. They seemed very knowledgeable about it, and I met all sorts of therapists, and they really got me on track with what this was about. And I think the first Google I did was for the FSHD Society, and I've been
Okay.
with them, that website, since. And the wealth of knowledge and the resources that it has, and just how it helped me navigate those beginning weeks and months since,
Mhm.
has just been awesome
Yeah.
for me.
So when you initially get that diagnosis, I think it was interesting when it was like it was split, right? Split feelings. Okay, now you know an answer. Um, most males, yes, okay, I'm doing that right now. I'm gonna kind of stereotype us all, but I like fixes and answers. For me, I find that a lot of guys I know like that. So great, you find your answer, but it didn't come with a fix,
It did
right?
not. That's the
So
frustrating
yeah,
part.
yeah, yeah.
Because they were honest with me. They said, "Look, there's no cure for this, and there's no treatment." And I said, well, "What can I do?" And she's, basically, eat healthy, exercise moderately, maintain a good weight. All the things you tell anybody to stay healthy.
Right.
It wasn't
Yeah.
specific for our disease. And I did see a physical therapist early on, and that was probably the most shocking visit, because they brought me down the hall and they walked me into the physical therapist's office. And immediately I look in, and there's a succession of canes to walkers to wheelchairs to power
Mm.
chairs. And that was the first day that I was like, whoa, this is a big deal now. This is not just, I might limp for a while. There's something to this. And yes, this office dealt with all sorts of neuromuscular diseases,
Mhm.
but that was the time it kind of really hit me that, well, this could be life-changing, is life-changing at this point. And I wonder, at what point will I end up in my lifetime, and what, succession of those devices to help me, have mobility.
Yeah, I think you said it perfectly there, right? The progression, and you saw it with the equipment that was out, and um, for many, seems to be like this common, almost like this like low moment, or you're almost mourning the person you thought you were going to be. You mentioned you were an athlete, so I was assuming that even as you got older, you're like, well, I'll stay active to whatever that means. How did that
Yeah.
change then your vision of what you thought your future was going to be to maybe what it was going to look like now?
I had the opportunity to do a lot of physically demanding things in my past, and I kind of had made a decision that a lot of those ultra endurance things I was going to put behind me. And anyway, so I
Yeah.
had the opportunity to actually stop doing those
Good.
before FSHD took them away. But being an athlete, being competitive, I had always thought I'd be doing more events or things of a different nature that would keep me active and competitive. Um, I'm staying active, but am I competitive at this point? No, I'm not. I'm much slower. I have difficulty with endurance and those things. So no, I'm nowhere near where I used to be. And I have to accept that that's new. But what can I do within that, new realm? And how can I try to maintain as much strength and endurance as I can where I am now?
Did you have you had to come up with any adaptions from as the progression goes?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things I can't do like I used to just even a few years back. So It's always about modifying as needed, as we say, and the group that I work out with a group called F3, and we modify as needed. And if you're injured, then you do things differently, or if maybe you're physically stronger than everybody else, so you increase what you do. So this group allows me to just kind of modify as needed. I kind of pare things down. I can't sprint. I can't do the things that others are doing, but I do what I can alongside them, and do the best I can. And that's all I really can do when I go out there, is to do my best, and whatever that is, it is.
You kind of been a nice segue there, because that was on my list of things to talk about. F3. I looked it up. There's a website out there for it. Very interesting. I'm gonna guess F3 is that fitness, fellowship, faith. Is that what we're looking at?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, those are the three Fs. So it's f3nation.com is kind of the main site, but there are local chapters all over the country. They ironically started here in Charlotte. So
nice.
There are a ton of workouts for me to be able to attend any single day. In my area, I can be at a work. I can have 4 workouts on any particular day that I can attend, because there's that many folks. Some of the other states may not have as much concentration, so they may have a couple workouts a week. But I was very fortunate, so I can get up every single day and find a group to go outside and do this workout with, and they're just, the group started as, the main grab at first is fitness. So people come out and they work out. We do boot camps, we ruck, we do those runs, those types of things.
Yeah,
and that gets you going. But immediately you find these friendships and these fellowship with these guys, and the fellowship is just so hugely important to me, to have that support system. And the faith is, believing in something bigger than yourself. And for me, it's my faith in Jesus and my belief in God, and where he has me going in my journey. So those 3 things come together to form what we call F3. And if this group has just been tremendously supportive of my diagnosis. They wrap around me. They make sure I'm, as the doctor said, don't do anything stupid when you work out where you're going to get hurt. And a lot of my guys will keep me from doing stupid stuff. And they're like, hey, I think you probably shouldn't be doing this, or maybe you should, scale back. Yeah. And so they're protecting me out there, and I couldn't be more, fortunate to have them surrounding me.
That's good. That's good. Now when I saw that group that was kind of tied with you a little bit, a little Google search is amazing things, Michael. And I thought that was awesome. You talked about chapters, how it started in Charlotte. So this is nationally then?
Yeah, actually there's international. There's some
international
groups all over the world now. And there's probably close to 5,000 workouts a week across the globe somewhere. So it's a very, very active community that's been growing. It's free. It's, it's free workout for men. It's always held outside, rain or shine.
Okay.
And it's led in a rotating fashion. So like, I might even lead a workout, even though I'm not top physical performer. I'll lead a workout, but I'll make sure everybody gets a good workout. Somebody else will lead it the next day and the next day. So we lead in that sort of sense.
Oh, cool.
And then at the end of every workout, we get together, we have what's called the circle of trust. And that's where we share what's going on with our life, where we need prayer requests, or just anything that's going on in your life, where we can share amongst men. So it's been a great supportive group for me.
That sounds fantastic. Yeah, I really wanted to make sure we touched on that, because I thought it was fascinating. I thought it was another, piece of support that you could bring to the table, that maybe others could look into. I think that might be a good fit for them. So thanks for bringing that up.
Good. Well, I hope somebody hears that and can look into it, because it's amazing this kind of support they get from that group.
When it comes to that, you mentioned the term chapter, right? You got a chapter in North Carolina for FSHD Society. Were you always the chapter leader? I think you're the chapter director now. Is that where you're?
I am now the chapter director. When I was diagnosed, I don't know if I said this, but I was diagnosed this past January. So in 2024 January. So 9 months ago or so. At the time, I think the chapter director needed to step down from doing the roles. I was just the new guy. I was just joining the third Thursday calls that the North Carolina chapter has, and got involved with some things that were going on, met some people, did a couple of little fundraisers, and went to the event in Denver, the FSHD Connect.
Oh, you did?
Conference.
Okay.
Yeah. So I kind of jumped all in. I just wanted to be a part of this as much as I could. I knew being around people, being around the community and other patients was hugely important for me. It was the thing that helped me deal with what I had by connecting with those that have disease. My first third Thursday call was probably 2 weeks after my diagnosis. Another gentleman was on the call. It was his first time on the call, and he was diagnosed a few weeks before me. Turns out he lives about 20 minutes from me. So
Oh, wow.
we immediately connected, in a couple of weeks, we met at a brewery with our significant others and got to know each other. And that first meeting with somebody else that had the same disease as me, and it was really kind of very similar to what his symptoms were, was the best, lunch we've ever had, because it really helped me connect and know, hey, there's somebody else out there that understands what I'm trying to describe or say about my disease or how I'm feeling. This guy gets it, So immediately became, good friends with him, and he's a friend of mine, and his girlfriend and my wife. We're all get together now and share stories, and they share their stories about dealing with the caretaker part of it, and we share our stories about being the patient. And it's those things that really are important to me. So when the chapter director role hadn't been filled, I said, hey, look, I went to the Connect conference and, met a bunch of chapter directors there. I just really feel that I want to positively impact the FSHD community in some way. And this was just an opportunity to do that, lead the walk and roll, do a fundraiser, and be the chapter director. And they agreed to put me on board. So yes, I just took over that role.
So you must have met like Beth then, right?
Yes.
Yeah, she's really good at roping people in, man.
She's very good at it. Beth and Jenny, who's the new regional chapter director, they worked me pretty well at the conference. I didn't have a way of getting out of it after that.
Yeah, it's like I almost feel like they set the hook. You don't even realize it.
Yeah. Until I got home, it's like, boy, I really want to do that. Oh, wait a minute. How did that happen?
How did this happen? Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But,
what was your impressions of the Connect? I was at the one in Florida. I didn't make the one in Colorado. I'm curious to know kind of your experience at that.
It was wonderful for me. I remember walking down the escalator, and there was a crowd of people. Everybody's checking in and meeting other folks. And I felt like I was coming into a family reunion, and I was a family member that they hadn't met yet, and I had met them. Because immediately everybody was welcoming and introduced themselves, and I got to know some super people. I mean, the community is full of the nicest, kindest folks I've ever met, and everybody just was so welcoming when I arrived. So immediately, as I said, it's like, I belong here. This is my family, but I just don't know them yet. And by the end of the weekend, made some great relationships, and the conference was really wonderful. I mean, they presented so many good speakers, and the breakout sessions were very valuable to what I was looking into and asking questions about, especially being fairly newly diagnosed. I mean, the wealth of information there was just fabulous. So I know it's every 2 years, but I've already set the calendar to remind first to sign up, but also tell everybody else they've got to be there, because it really changed my perspective on a lot of things. It just really made me feel good to be part of a community like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I totally agree. That was my impressions too. When I went to Mindle, they kind of put me to work, which I was happy to do, but it was cool to, I think you described it right on. Like, we're just approaching the entrance of that, or if it's, just, man, for us, it was even just checking into the hotel. Like, you just spot people and go, hey, that guy kind of looks like me, or that woman there. Oh, you know what? Hey, she's in a power chair. Cool. Hey, these are my people, My brother told me a long time ago, you just got to find your tribe, just find the people that you connect with. And that's what I love about that Connect conference. It's like they do it for education. They do it for the connection. I love the title of it. For that reason, I think that connection comes first, Yeah.
And it's such an important connection for me.
Yeah.
It's really very important to me.
Yeah. Have you found over the time you've been diagnosed in January that the physical side of this disease is more difficult, or maybe less difficult than like the emotional or psychological, so to speak, side of this?
That's a really good question, Tim. I think, when I'm working out, sometimes I struggle, it's frustrating. But I think emotionally it can be harder to deal with sometimes, because it's, we don't have any options at the moment. I mean, this community was dealt a pretty big blow this past week, when Fulcrum announced that they're, stopping the trials for losmapapod. So I think, those types of things is like, oh, we were so close to getting something in our hands and we're not. So it's a lot of a roller coaster there, but there's far more highs for me on, I mean, I feel incredibly blessed. I almost feel privileged that, God chose me to have this disease, because now I get to, you know, reach out to the community, make these friendships. I have a richer life because of it. I see so many more positives that have come from this than the negatives that I'm dealing with. And I just feel very, very fortunate, that he's trusted me to, use this in a positive way. And there's no doubt that it's made my life better.
Yeah.
Going back, would I choose, hey, checkbox, do I want FSHD or not? I probably would check the no box, but now that, there's no changing that. It's genetic and I've got it. So I just, day one was tough, but after that, it's been a very positive experience for me. And I'm very grateful for everybody in this community.
Now, did anybody else in your family have it, being a genetic disease that you're aware of?
No. So I have two brothers and a sister, and, extended family with, nieces and nephews and aunts and uncles. And we have no indication that anybody has had this. Now, my father died when I was young. I was only 24. So perhaps he did. I started showing symptoms early 50s, and that's when he passed away. So I don't know that he may have had it, but we don't know of anybody in my family that had it. Maybe a grandfather. Somebody's like, one of my brothers like, hey, maybe he kind of have a funny walk or something, or, his shoulders were different. Maybe, but we don't have anything confirmed with that. And none of my siblings or nieces and nephews are showing any signs whatsoever. So it's hard to say.
Yeah. Yeah. And how was their reaction? I'm assuming that you had to, present this to them.
That was a weird, that was probably one of the difficult things I had to do, was to call them and tell them what was going on. And very supportive. Obviously there's concern on their part. Oh, this is a genetic disease that we could have, or our children could have it. So there was concerns, but once we started talking about, the signs and the symptoms and all the things that I've been experiencing for a while, and really, when you get that diagnosis, it's almost like your life gets rewritten real fast in your head. It's like, oh yeah, I could never do a pull-up for that reason, or my arms would never go this high, or I had these difficulties. The instant you get the diagnosis, you know what the disease is about. The whole life flashes in front of your eyes. Well, it does, but it's rewritten for you all of a sudden, and you start to see it in a different perspective. So they never had any of these things that I did growing up either. So unlikely, they're watching for it. It's something they're aware of. But my family's been super supportive. My wife is rock solid. I mean, from day one, she has just been right there to support me in every single way. And I've actually called friends of hers and said, hey, would you, when I'm not around, give her a call, make sure she's not just showing this to me that she's strong, but she's having a rough time. And they'll call me back. It's like, no, she's solid. She's got you. So,
cool.
I mean, she's just been the absolute number one best thing in my life for this. And she's so supportive. So yeah, everybody has it just lifted me up and has my back. So
wow, that's a great support system. Yeah. Now with, I can go two different directions. A couple of things I want to ask, but one, I guess I want to make sure that we hit it, and that's the walk and roll events. What are you doing with your chapter, the walk and roll? And it sounded like you had also other fundraising events maybe that you've done. So you kind of touch on that too.
Yeah. When I was first diagnosed, a friend of mine that with F3 wanted his name. We all have nicknames in F3. I don't know if mine's Anchorman. His name is Boss for BOS, Big Orange Shoes. Anyways, we have weird nicknames.
Okay.
But he runs an annual kind of run. It's called an extinction run, and he does it to raise money. So he was getting ready to set up his next one. I said, hey, do you want to help me out? We'll raise money for the FSHD Society. I said, perfect. So we went all in. We really kind of blew it up, did it even bigger than before. He had raised $1,000 each year for a couple of years, and so it was doing pretty well. Well, the F3 community, my friends and family all just jumped in, and by the end of the event, we raised $13,000. So
holy cow!
So we really, it's those my F3 brothers and my family and my friends that all just chipped right in. So that was great. So then I learned about the walk and roll as being another fundraising event, and I'm not sure if we hadn't had one in North Carolina for a bit. Maybe they'd taken a
possible.
few years off. So Jenny and Beth are kind of talked to me about that. And
Oh,
I said,
sure,
look,
sure.
they said, you just ran this event. How about running another one in September? I said, fine, sounds great. Happy to do it. So Jenny and I immediately started working on a location and an event, and yeah, so we just put it together, and so we decided to do it. And actually, it's the 21st, which will be when we're taping this on this Saturday.
Yeah, it's coming. Yeah, we're taping this on the 17th, and that is coming up. And there's been some walk and rolls that have happened on the 7th of September, on the 14th. So like you're like that next wave, like that next weekend, and they actually run. I saw on the schedule all the way to like October 12th. There's even still some. So kind of like grown it to the more than just one day.
Which is great. My hope is to maybe even get down to the one in Atlanta, because it's only about 3 hours for me. So I'd like to see that one too. But there are a great series of them here, and so we've it's our first one out of the gate for Jenny and I. It may be small, but we're gonna make the best of it. We've already got some good responses and fundraising going, and I think I think my team is around 7,000 so far. So we're really doing well, and the whole community, we're over 10, I think. So it's going to be a great event.
It's doing solid.
Good initial event, I think.
Yeah. So where is the plug it? Like, where's the event at? If people want to find out info, all that.
Sure. So it's right outside of Charlotte, but it's in a small town called Cramerton, which is right next to Belmont. But if people know Cramerton, there's an island they call Goat Island, and we're actually using Goat Island as our location. It's a small island, so anybody that's in the area should know where Goat Island is. It's a fun little park. They've got stuff for the kids. They've got pavilions and a nice little walking path for us to use for event day.
That sounds awesome. And it is an actual island?
Yeah, it's an actual island. The story goes that it used to be full of goats. So Goat Island. But there's a little small pedestrian bridge that goes over. It's not very big at all, but it goes over into the island part, and that's where the event will be. And there's a local singer she's a young kid. Really, her career started to take off. She was in the news for some events recently. Excuse me, Bailey Marie. And she's going to come. She heard about what we're doing, and she's going to come and sing the national anthem to kick us off.
That's cool.
So she's very popular in the area. She's a very talented singer. I think she's a senior in high school, and has really got a great career ahead of her. She's doing a couple big country singing events and other things. So she's really become popular. But she agreed to come and sing the national anthem. So we're hoping people come see her as well, and then draw us in some of the crowd, because she's a local person. And quite generous of her.
Yeah, I mean, it's that talent I don't really have. Is singing.
I certainly don't.
Someone does it so well, especially the national anthem. I've like many, right? We've seen a lot of people do it very well, and some not so great. But I give them all credit for getting out in front of some group of people and singing it.
My biggest, I have to speak at the event, so I'll speak, and that's fine. Well, I'll bring the American flag so she can have the flag there, but the singing will be left to the professionals.
That's good. That's good. Yeah. Well, someone does have to be a leader, right? I mean, that seems like has been a role you've taken on pretty well, not just with this chapter, even sounds a little bit, even with the F3 group that you work with. I think they found the right person. They must have saw you coming. Michael, they're like, that's the guy we want.
And I'm glad to be a part of it, because it's doing such wonderful things for the people in the community, and I know how much it's helped me already.
Now, last question for you. I asked this one to others. And I think it's in your situation. I think it's even more of a timely question, because we talked about the recent diagnosis, the fact that you jumped in right away. I kind of made that conscious choice too. I thought to myself, I'm either going to be quiet about this or I'm going to be loud about it. So as everybody knows now, I got kind of loud about it. I can't get much louder than a microphone in front of your face. So, what would you say to someone who recently diagnosed, and maybe you've had this conversation, with someone already, where they want to get involved, but they're not quite sure. Maybe they're looking for you for advice. Granted, you've kind of done it on a very large scale, in my opinion, jumping into chapter director, walk and roll, the whole thing in a very short amount of time. But what kind of encouragement or advice would you give that person that's kind of on the fence to jump in or not?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point, because when you get diagnosed, you're early on, I've talked to some people that said they just went into a dark place and secluded and got away. And they've since jumped in and
Yeah.
at least started communicating. A lot of the chapters will have a monthly call, a way to kind of virtually meet some people.
Mhm.
Um, I would just encourage everybody, uh, it's much better with community. It's much better with support. You have people out there that can truly understand what you're going through. So, even if it's dipping into a call, you don't have a call in your chapter, call me. You can come onto my chapter call. Whatever it works. But I think just reaching out and getting to know other people that are going through similar things, and maybe you do have a connection. I was lucky, David was on that first call with me, and we've connected, and we've since, we've developed this friendship, and we got lucky that first day we really had a connection. But maybe you won't on that first day. You can listen in,
Right.
or just go to the walk and roll. You don't have to participate. You don't have to raise money. If there's a walk and roll in your area, just go see that there's
Yeah.
other people around there that are going through the same thing, and just be open to the community, because I will say from my own, testimony, that the community, the FSHD community, and all the friends and support is truly what is helping me just, I hope, make the best of this situation.
And I feel like you have. And it sounds like, too, it's almost like a pay it forward. People I don't think always realize that when they step up and they start to donate their time or their talents, right, to a cause, it is rewarding to them for sure, right? There is that part of it. But how much you spread to the people around you is quite a ripple effect. We kind of had that kind of brought out in a previous guest. We kind of said that, like, man, it's like just there's one thing you do affects so many, and you might not even know it. How much it really affects them in a positive way. You seem like a positive person. You've talked a lot of positivity, faith. That does help in that regard. I've told many people, it's no secret, I'm not exactly the most positive person in the world, Michael. So I like to hang out with people that are. Sometimes it rubs off on me a little more.
And that's okay. And everybody,
Yeah.
has their different approach, and that's fine too. But I've heard you say that in the past, and
Yes.
I don't see negativity in what you say each and every podcast. I think you were very positive. But yeah, we all have times we're not positive. Let's not sugarcoat it. Every one of us is going to have a dark day, or dark days or weeks or whatever. But that's the time, if you start to build relationships when you have those difficult times, you've got somebody to reach out to that knows what you're going through. You don't have to wait till you're in that situation. When things are going well, just dip your toe into it, whatever level it is.
Yeah.
And you go all in, or you just say hi to somebody at an event, and that's all it takes.
Yeah. Just by simply saying hi, you're right. Just making that simple connection, eye contact, little connection. Be surprised what will happen. Unless they totally ignore you, then I don't know what to tell you.
Well, yeah. Well, if they ignore you, give me a shout. Reach out to me somehow with the North Carolina chapter.
You won't do that. Yeah.
I will not do that. I'm happy to talk or have a conversation with anyone.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Michael, for having a conversation with me and being on the podcast. Now you can maybe check that on your box of things you've done. In addition to everything else you do with the FSHD Society, you are on this platform too. So thank you for your time.
Well, Tim, it's truly been an honor to be on it. I really commend you for what you're doing. It's been important to me. I think one of the first things I did was listen to one of your podcasts, and listen to everyone since, and they're very helpful to me. So if somebody's out there listening to this one, don't make it your last. They're very good. Continue to listen and go back. I think you've got them all in the library somewhere.
They are. They're all out there. There.
You got a long plane ride or a long trip, stop popping those in and listen, and you'll be glad you did.
They can see the progression of the show, right? I'm sure the first ones were maybe a little more rough. Every episode gets better and better. So
it's quite good now. So thank you again, Tim, for hosting.
You. Of course. Right. Thanks. Take care. That's Michael King. He is chapter director in Charlotte, North Carolina area. Just diagnosed in January. It's September, people. This guy jumped right in. The planning it takes to do. He did 2 fundraising events since he's been diagnosed. Just a go-getter. That's the impression I have of him. I'm not surprised he was an athlete. He would probably make a great coach. If he lived in the area, I'd be like, do you know anything about baseball? I'd probably hire him. He's the kind of attitude that you want in your community. One of those leaders. I told him, like I do a lot of the guests that come on, and I want to make sure that they're comfortable. And I always do a little bit of a conversation prior and letting them know, what direction we're going to probably go. And this is, some questions and this and that. And I always warn them, I'm going to be writing things. That doesn't mean I'm not listening, they're more like those hotspot key words. Life rewritten for you is something that really stood out to me. That seems to be very poignant. It seems to be spot on for me. That's exactly it for so many. And I'm hoping a lot of you are kind of shaking your head in affirmation here and thinking back to when you were diagnosed. Yes, it answers the questions. Yes, it kind of gets you to go, okay, so now I know what this is. Now you're still the same person, right? That's something I had to even come to grips with. Like all I did was walk into a doctor's office. They gave me news. I walked out. It's not like something drastically changed within me, not physically, but mentally it did. And I think that's happened to a lot of people. And some want to stay quiet and like, Michael said, kind of be a little more secluded, not really jive in, and maybe they do it later. And there's nothing wrong with however people do it. We're all different. We have to cope with things our own way. To give everybody their space to do so is really the right way to do it. I just implore that people have to understand that, yes, your life is probably now been rewritten. What you thought was going to be or could be is not maybe at all going to happen. I can say that physically, I can't run anymore. I miss it. I miss just tracking a fly ball for, playing the outfield in baseball when I used to do it with my friends. I miss that a lot. I can't do those things anymore. I can't skate anymore. I used to play a ton of hockey, a lot of athletes things, a lot of athletic things, a lot of sports things. The only sport I can do now is golf. I coach baseball, but I really don't play it, obviously, but golf. And that's something I enjoy. My boys play with me. My wife does. So we have to make a nice foursome, which is convenient, but it gives me I can still do that. And I am nervous at what happens if that gets taken away because of this stupid disease. And I know that we've had bad news with Los Mapamad, and I know that it's been maybe a surprise to some that didn't work out, but not really to some others. It wasn't, I guess, super promising to begin with, if you really kind of dig through. And FSHD Society is trying to support the community the best they can by saying, the right things that we do need to hear. And that's, okay, this is a setback. We understand that, but there's more down the pipeline. Let's always look forward. There's no doubt that is definitely truth. And, a lot of us are aware of the other FSHD podcasts that talked about the science of it. And they kind of predicted, that this probably wasn't going to work out. And, give them credit for that. And so maybe those that know through that podcast, like, hey, we kind of saw this coming too. That's good. That was good for the community. Maybe that kind of settled the blow a little bit, so it wasn't so difficult to take. But to me, it doesn't really matter if it didn't work or not. It's all about time. It felt like time was wasted. It felt like, this is just me, it felt like time was wasted. Now we got to start over. Is there anything even that far along? Oh my gosh, how long is longer? Now is it going to be another a year, maybe minimum? Come on. And it's not just for me, but what if my kids have it? Other people that have kids that have it, they don't have another year. That's to me where the frustrating part is. When I had a reflection on that, I was surprisingly more saddened by it, upset by it than I thought. Partly was because the news kind of came out of nowhere, but it just really got me thinking about that. And the thing that really stuck in my mind after I kind of worked through the layers of, why do I feel like this? Why do I feel disappointed? Why do I feel like this is a problem? And it always came back to time. We got to wait again, and I know when I was diagnosed that it felt like immediately somebody started a stopwatch, started some type of countdown, and I have no idea where it ends, but I better get everything I can done now and work as quickly as I can to do the things I can still do. And when we're getting closer to 2025, I thought, hopefully we'll have something close, something to stop it. It doesn't appear that's going to be. I don't know, maybe I'm wrong. It doesn't feel that way. And that's disappointing. Losing that time is difficult. I know Michael touched on it a little bit in this episode about, his take on it. That's devastating blow. He's a positive guy. He didn't stay there long. Boom, he moved on to the next thing. I kind of stay there a little longer. That's what kind of makes our mindset a little bit different. But I kind of most times, I see things from different perspectives than others, where I didn't see it as just, okay, this drug's not going to work. I'm like, okay, so it doesn't work. And to be honest with you, I really don't care why it doesn't. The scientists do. They should use that for learning. I'm not in that realm, so it wouldn't matter for me as long as they're doing their job. But for me, I don't get it. The answer is it didn't work. And the answer to me now is it's taking more time. And a lot of time that most of us don't have to wait. And that's where it's frustrating. And some people would say to me, well, Tim, you're frustrated. There's nothing you can do about it though, but that's why I'm frustrated. Because it really comes down to it. You really can't do anything about it. Not about giving yourself, some type of treatment, some type of cure. It's just not there. And this damn disease just continues to chew at us. And I feel for the whole community, for the ones that are diagnosed at young ages, especially those that have young people in their lives that they're looking at them all the time. Like, do they have it? Do they not? Like me? It's frustrating. It's just frustrating. So I don't want to end it on a negative note, but the life rewritten seems to kind of, as he said it, was the same kind of feeling I had almost like with this news of Fulcrum. It's rewritten, almost starting over to some degree, it felt like. So that's unfortunate. Hope everybody, though, is attending what Michael kind of said. Take that advice, get connected with the group that's going to help you through those rough times for sure. Connect with those people in your community. If you haven't yet, do so. Chapters are all near you. If you don't want to be part necessarily of a chapter, there's a lot of other things. Parents Roundtable. Looks like here, Feeling Fit with FSHD. Women and Wellness. Everything early onset. I mean, there is so many groups. The growth in the community, something for everybody, has been remarkable since the time I've been involved. About, I don't know how long it's been now. I want to say it's like 8 years, and the growth of the community has been unbelievable. So, you want to be on the show, be a part of this connection pathway. I'd love to hear your stories. FSHD radio at fshdsociety.org. That's a good way to get a hold of me. Connect. Then maybe we can set up a call. Let's talk things out. You want to be on the show, want to be a guest, or maybe you just want to talk. Not being recorded. That's okay too. I'm here for that as well. I'd love to hear from you and get your feedback and have a chat. So FSHD radio at fshdsociety.org. FSHD Straight Talk, of course, brought to you by the FSHD Society. Glad that they could help bring this to us every episode. They help support, edit, do the things I don't love, especially Erin in the back end. She does a lot of stuff for this show. Man, the editing and the things she does is amazing. And it takes a lot of the burden off myself so I can concentrate on talking to the people and getting those things lined up. So thank you to her. Follow the show, rate, review, all that kind of stuff. I find my episodes of all my podcasts I love on Spotify. Maybe find it there. I think we're on Google and a whole bunch of other platforms. So look for us everywhere. Tell everybody. So thank you again to Michael King for being here all the way from Charlotte, North Carolina, being on the show. And thanks for listening. You've been listening to FSHD Straight Talk. See you next time.